Chris Wood. He scored a penalty for Nottingham Forest against Ipswich. And it's the 27th different club that Chris Wood has scored a Premier League goal against. He has now scored 7 penalty kicks out of 7 penalty kicks in a row. We've talked a lot about
Chris Premier Wood League.
In the Premier League. We've talked a lot about Chris Wood, like what we love about him as a striker. Just his goal-scoring instincts, positioning, and his defensive work. I actually think, like, Chris Wood, and this is something to watch out for when we get into the A-League Derby, defense starts with the striker. And how the strikers not only press, but how they cover the passing lanes, the angles into the midfield. And Chris Wood's excellent at that. Like, he's always looking over his shoulder. He's always covering the pass into the center midfielders, which means he's basically marking 2 people at the same time because he's covering the ball, but then he's also covering the bloke in behind him. Shout out Chris Wood. But Chris Wood's also really good at penalty kicks. Maybe he's one of the best penalty takers in the Premier League. And you always know that someone's good at penalty kicks when his teammates are already celebrating before he actually kicks it. And that happened most recently in the Ipswich Town game. It's happened a few times with his penalties. My question is, what makes Chris Wood so good at penalty kicks?
Well, let me just whip up his statisticos here, because 7 in a row in the Premier League, that's great. He's never missed a penalty in the Premier League. He's gone 7 for 7. He's he scored those penalties for 3 of them for Burnley, 2 for Newcastle, 2 for Nottingham Forest. So he spread them out across his different clubs as well. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because Chris Wood has never missed a penalty for the All Whites either. Chris Wood he took 1 penalty for New Zealand under-23s. He didn't miss that. He scored it. Chris Wood scored plenty of penalties for Leeds United. Chris Wood has also popped up scoring goals and penalty shootouts around the place as well, in various situations, from the Olympics to the League Cup. Actually, they've all been in the League Cup except for one in the Olympic Games 2021 against Japan. Yeah, that's right. We lost that one. Add those all together. Open play, it's not open play, but regular goal penalty type things during the game, penalty shootouts as well. He has not missed a penalty under any circumstances in serious senior football, or including under 23 stuff, which he wasn't under 23 at the time, but he was one of the overage players for that Olympics team. Has not missed a penalty since Leeds United versus Hull City, 23rd of April 2016. Skied one over the top that day against goalkeeper Alan McGregor. So that is 29 consecutive penalties that he's scored across 8.5 years. There's no way I could figure out what that looks like compared to other strikers in the world, but I would imagine there's not very many high caliber players, like international level players, who have a record, like a current penalty streak, that can match that. It is incredible stuff from Chris Wood, and it goes on. And it's to the point where now, like, I'm so invested in tracking the stat that when he steps up to take a penalty, knowing that he's one of the best penalty takers in the world, I'm just worried that he's going to miss, because I'm like, it'll spoil the stat. Maybe I've jinxed it at this point. But it hasn't happened yet. I've been tracking this for several years, and he continues to just, every time he takes one, bang, goal. And this latest one against Ipswich, smacked it down the middle. They actually played the little, right as he was lining up, they had a little graphic in the corner of the broadcast which showed his 5 most recent penalties. And there were 3 sort of semi down the middle, 1 to the left, 1 to the right. And I think when you're asking what makes Chris Wood such a good penalty taker, I would imagine that is a pretty significant factor of that, is you don't actually know which way he's going to go. Because he can bang it in the bottom corner, he can bang it in the top corner, he can go down the middle. He's scored in the various ones. So if you're tracking down his past, the film, trying to look at your goalkeeper coming up against Nottingham Forest, if you concede a penalty, it's likely to be Chris Wood. Every Premier League club has analysts for days, so they're tracking these things. They're looking for every little possible advantage they can find. If you're looking at that and saying Chris Wood 80% of the time shoots to his left, you're going to dive to your left, aren't you? Because you're thinking, law of averages, this is the most likely place I can go to save this penalty. You can't do that against a guy who can who's like mixes it up every time. Where he scored either of the three directions he can go because he scores a few banging them down the middle as well. Um, Another thing I noticed from his penalty against Ipswich specifically is that you see him lining up, you see him standing there waiting. He's marked his run up, he's ready to go. The whistle blows, and he waits. Like he takes an extra breath or two, and then he starts his little shuffle and then forward, and then just like running straight onto it and slamming it. He's not one of those guys who does a little hop, skip, and jump or anything like that. He just smack that thing and put it where it needs to go. I think also maybe that is a factor too, is that he does hit the ball hard. So unless you're guessing, you have no time to react. And there's a risk involved there because the harder you hit it, the less control you have over it, like the less precise you might be. But he's just really good at hitting his spots. So that's fine. Like he's fine with that risk because he can overcome that risk with his ability to put the ball where he's aiming it. But also, yeah, that ability to just, or that consciousness to just wait, to say, I'm in control of this moment. This is my moment. I'm going to score this goal. Take an extra breath or two. There are a lot of studies on penalties because it's kind of an isolated part of a game. You can look into these various different aspects. There's a lot of sort of controllable factors. And there's definitely research to say that if you like players who rush their penalty, the whistle goes and you run up and take it straight away, are more likely to miss than players who take an extra couple seconds. But I think there is also a tipping point there. I found a few different sources. I was going to chuck something in the newsletter, but I didn't find something that I felt like covered all the bases. So short of like doing my own, working on my own thesis and drawing in a whole bunch of different elements, different research, I didn't have time to do that, so I didn't. But there does also seem to be a tipping point where you can wait too long or get too frisky with it and psych yourself out. But there's that sweet spot, which is like sort of 2 to 4 seconds or something like that after the whistle where, just an extra breath, stay in your rhythm, stay in your routine, but you don't rush it, gives you the best chance. And the fact that Chris Wood does these things that seem to align with the analytics of penalty taken as well suggests to me that despite the fact he doesn't really give the impression of someone who's very studious about this kind of stuff, definitely gives the impression of someone who works extremely hard on the training paddock and practices these things physically over and over and over. No doubt about that. I think maybe he's working very hard on some of these. I suspect he's at least very aware of these kind of like the penalty analytics side of things as well. That seems likely, seeing as how he happens to align with a lot of these ideas. But so to sum it all up, basically, I just think he's good at penalties because he ticks the boxes, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe he's just good at penalties full stop, and that's the answer.
The penalty that he missed did sound a lot like the penalty that he scored this week, though, where like you're describing a penalty kick where he goes over the top of the goal, and this one against Ipswich, he banged it into the roof of the net. And if there is a way of missing a penalty that just doesn't look good, it's banging it over the bar. That seems like the worst way to miss a penalty. But as you're saying, he sounds like he puts a lot of effort into being good at penalties, with all the analytics, knowing what he's good at, his skill set, the best way to score a penalty. And that has him right now as one of the best penalty takers in the Premier League and the whole wide world. Got to throw this out there with the mad respects to the rest of Aotearoa, but we are from Auckland, so big up Auckland football, because Auckland United won the Women's National League. Auckland City won the Men's National League. After you told me how shit they were all season. Just joking. I know.
Only by Auckland City standards,
Yeah.
And another year they might have won 4-0 in the final. The fact they went to extra time is there's your clue. But
yeah, so
that was also a trend of their season, was finding late goals when they needed them.
But then their opponent was Birkenhead United, who's also from Auckland. So either way,
yeah,
it was going to be an Auckland
win-win
weekend of football. So many variations on the Auckland. We got Auckland United in the women's side. We got Auckland City as far as teams with Auckland in their name, because then we get to Auckland FC. And I mean, feel free to offer any National League bits and pieces that you want to as we roll through this discussion, but Auckland FC are just awesome. They are top of the table. They are 5-0, yet to concede a goal. And the only team, well, the next best defense as far as goals conceded is the Wellington Phoenix on 3 goals conceded. And then you go Melbourne Victory, who are second on 4 goals conceded. So A, Aotearoa dominates the A-League, and B, Auckland FC haven't conceded a goal, and the second best team in defense has conceded 3 goals. So it's not like there's a 1-goal margin there. It's 3 goals the difference between Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix. What do I have as far as my observations? I want to big up Nando. Not Nando Tanchos, but Nando Pijnaker, because I loved his performance against Newcastle. And there was a lot going on with that. There always is, as far as Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix. And we will be previewing this derby game on Thursday on our bonus podcast. But whether it's the Auckland FC ability to win turnovers up the field, their pressing ability, or you've got Verstrata winning the ball in the midfield. We've talked a lot about how they attack. Gillian on the left, Rogerson on the right, Mai in the middle. Had a lot of Brimmer and Gallios on Saturday against Newcastle. There was also Callan Elliott at right back, stepping in for Sakai. Did a fantastic job, I reckon. Nando's is he my favourite player? I reckon he's my favourite player given what I've seen with how he showed a bit. He's got this he's got a shimmy to step into the midfield. He's got a shimmy to shake off the striker, the Chris Wood type of striker, whatever, and then step into the space moving forward. And he's quite aggressive when he wants to do that. He's got the ball at the back, and then he will take up the space in front of him. I reckon that space, though, is created by his left-footed passing ability. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Nottingham Forest has a left-sided centre-back, Murillo?
Yep, that's the one.
I saw him do the same pass a few times during the games that I watched. And it's a left-sided centre-back whipping the ball around the right winger for the other team to get the ball upfield to your left back. So if you're a right-footed centre-back, you can't make that pass unless you're going outside of your foot and you're kind of curling it around the opposition winger, which is an incredibly risky pass to do. Sure, if you can do it, you can do it. But
because
not
if you lose the ball there, you're losing it in the middle of the pitch where they can hit you straight away versus losing the ball out wide. It's more likely to be touched out for a throw-in or something. But then also the other factor of there is, where does the left back receive the ball? Because the right-footed guy playing that pass, it's curling back into him, right? So he has to sort of stop and receive that, whereas the left-footed pass curling up the line, it's going with the sideline, and you can then just receive that in motion and carry it forward up the line. It's just a more effective version of that pass. But
if you're brave enough to do it with the outside of your right foot, you're still getting that curl. It just looks a bit ridiculous, and it's a very, very risky pass to make. But you need a left-footed centre-back to do it, and they need to be good at passing the ball. You need to be powerful, accurate with the right whip to get a little bit of curl on it, but that enables your left back to get upfield. Because what happens is that right winger, they're just trying to stay level with the left back. They'll try and stay infield to cut off the passes going into the middle of the field. But as long as they are level with the left back pushing upfield, most of those right wingers will back themselves to stop the pass or put pressure on the ball once it gets there. But Nando, and I saw Murillo do it a few times for Nottingham Forest, they whip those passes in so fast that it just cuts out that right winger. And if Nando does that a few times, then he's opening up the inside channel, which I saw him do as well, because he's a good left-footed passer. So then he's giving the straight ball. And if he's doing those things a few times, then he's creating space in front of him for him to step forward in, draw an attacker, pass it in behind, away we go. And that left-sided mix is quite interesting because it's Franny de Vries at left back, who isn't necessarily fast, so he's relying on his positioning and his reading of the game to make the most of that left-sided left. Because when you think wing-backs, I'm not sure if he's a wing-back necessarily, but when you think wing-backs, you're thinking Sam Sutton, Callan Elliott, like those type of quick defenders who get up and down the sideline. Respect to de Vries, he's not necessarily as lively as those dudes, but he's always in the right spot. He's always dragging the defender just enough. He's got that nous, that know-how with Nando to make sure he's in the right positions. And then you're getting Brimmer involved. Then you're getting Gillian involved on that left side as well. To me, it all starts with Nando at the back. And like, I know, Kiwi defenders, Finn Sermon, Nando Pijnaker, maybe Tyler Bindon. They're going to be physical. They're going to block shots. They're going to win the headers. They're going to make the easy pass nice. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bindon and Sermon aren't left-footed?
No, but Bindon is close enough that he can play. He does play a fair bit of left centre-back. He plays left centre-back for Reading, which is partly just because they have to work with what they've got, but also, like, he has the skills to play that position and make a few passes with his left. You know, he's a very skilled player on the ball.
Yeah, he's not necessarily a good example of just a prototypical Kiwi centre-back. Finn Sermon...
Yeah, that's more the Finn Sermon, Michael Boxall role is carrying on the lineage of Winston Reid, Ryan Nelson before them, you know?
Yeah, they do a great job at that style of centre-back. I think Bindon spent a lot more time... Well, Nando spent time overseas as well, but just, long story short, watching Nando pass the ball on top of all his defensive craft and instincts and goal-scoring ability, his left-footed passing game is sublime, and I am fascinated to see that come up against the Wellington Phoenix this weekend.
And I'm still waiting to see a bit more of that, which I guess is maybe the last trick that had come out, is the crossfield switch I was talking about last week, where or not even just the crossfield switch, like just the long ball up to the striker kind of thing as well, where maybe that guy's looking to flick it on or run in behind perhaps, but just his ability to access space with his passing game for over big distances as well. We got a little bit of that in the most recent game, but also weather conditions were pretty rough, so it wasn't really the game for that kind of stuff to happen. But against the Wellington Phoenix, who, well, I suspect they won't have the wing-back formation. I suspect they won't have the sort of back three with the wide players further up, which would have left some space back there. But potentially with, if it's a two centre-back formation, perhaps that also is something, because the Phoenix key thing of how they play is to get those fullbacks up there, whether they're fullbacks or wing-backs. So just because they're playing with fullbacks doesn't mean that Sam Sutton or whoever or Tim Payne, actually both of them missed the most recent game, but they've had 2 weeks to recover. So those guys go forward, lose the ball. Nando Pijnaker is the kind of guy who can get that ball very quickly to Logan Rogerson or whoever on the other side, running into that space that's been left behind. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to his game. He does look like a big bruising kind of centre back, but he's always had a bit of pizzazz about his close control and his ability to play with the ball at his feet and that kind of stuff. So at times, as a younger centre-back, that would make him look a little bit clumsy. I think at this age, where he's sort of 24, 25, 26 range, I think he's really like, he's coming to his own physically, to where he's like, that's not a drama now. He's able to just run around and be big, be bruising, shove guys around, but also still be balanced and be in control with the ball. And I was, like a lot of people, I was a little bit, getting a little bit frisky of him playing in Ireland, being like, yeah, but you sort of need to move up to the next level at some point. At least you need to move up to the next level if you're going to stay as an all white starter, because Tyler Binton is coming, Ben Sermon is coming, So the move to Auckland FC was a little bit of like, well, that's okay, that's interesting, but you're moving from Europe back to New Zealand where there's fewer direct things. That doesn't necessarily mean there is like a couple years here playing very well, and we've seen what Alex Paulson has already done. Signed with a Premier League club straight out of the A League, so that stuff is getting more and more accessible. But it was an interesting move for him. I'm now firmly of the opinion that it was a fantastic move for him, because you're seeing a very confident version of him. And I think he was playing really well in Ireland at the start of the year. So he was in good form already. He's playing better now for Auckland FC as part of a strong defensive unit. So that helps. Like keeping track of this Alex Paulson stat, he's now gone 738 minutes without conceding a goal in senior football for the All Whites and in the A-League. So that's pretty incredible. That helps. But yeah, there's the Nando Pijnaker transfer has gone fantastic for him, and for Auckland FC, that was a very good move, and he's been great for them. And that's part of the it's 5 clean sheets in a row now, isn't it? 5 clean sheets in a row. And I'm not sure you can say like, yeah, but it's all Alex Paulson. Like, Alex Paulson's making all these saves. Yeah, Alex Paulson's made some saves. He's probably a lot busier playing for the Wellington Phoenix last year than he has been so far here. So I'm not sure that quite. It's certainly not all on his shoulders. Dan Hall and Nando Pijnaker have been fantastic, but it's not like man of the match stuff every week. Hiroki Sakai didn't play this game. And like you say, Callan Elliott comes in and does really well. Like Francis de Vries has exceeded all expectations on left back. Like there's not been a weak link in that defense. And Louis Verstrada, one of the best players in the A-League now, I'm pretty confident in saying. He's just so smooth. He's doing all the same things as Alex Rufer. One of the things people love about Alex Rufer is you can kind of see the gears grinding with Rufer. Like he's a player who has made the most of his abilities. He's very smart. He's very efficient about what he does. But for Strada is like, he does the same stuff without breaking a sweat. Like you see Alex Rufer breaking a sweat, and that's it again. Like that's one of the things fans love about him, because you want to see players sweating for your team. But it's also pretty cool to see a dude who's just so in control. He's in the right spot just every time, reading the play like a picture book. He doesn't break a sweat. He's just that smooth, that efficient, that good.
No one's saying the Wellington Phoenix are a great defensive team because of one player. But I think there can be the assumption that, okay, it's Alex Paulson, it's your centre backs, it's your Shape, it's your Verstrada,
I'll say I think Alex Paulson's influence on the Phoenix is great. They were the best defensive team in the A-League last season. Auckland FC has been the best defensive team so far. I think Paulson's influence on the Phoenix being that good defensively last year has been greater than it has been for Auckland FC so far.
I agree, but my point is that their defense starts up top. Their defense is a team-wide thing. Their defense is a coach. Their defense is a system that when Callan Elliott steps in for his first game, he's doing the job. Their defensive excellence is their identity. How about that? Auckland FC is just a great defensive organization, and that is why they are the best team in the A-League. And it's all the little bits and pieces that I think makes this derby game in Auckland a fascinating matchup coming up this weekend that we will discuss in our bonus pod on Patreon. And for anyone with a paid Substack subscription, just quickly with the National League finals, who are the best young emerging players in those finals? Did we get a Stipe Jukic moment? Who stood out for you with Auckland United?
Well, with Auckland United, yeah, we did get a Stipe Jukic moment. It was less than 2 minutes into the game when Pierre Block curls one into the top corner.
Oh, so we had a Stipe Jukic moment for Auckland United.
Yeah, sorry. We had a Stipe Jukic parallel moment for Auckland United. We didn't actually, ironically, we didn't get a Stipe Jukic moment in the Auckland City game. He actually had quite a quiet game. He's a couple of moments where there was one moment late in the first half where he was almost through, and Harris Seb like rugby tackles him to the ground. Two different, he got booked for it, and two different Auckland City players also got booked in that moment, arguing with it. Yeah,
So you told me that Stipe Jukic was the rugby player.
well, I told you he likes a bit of the well, I told you he doesn't mind doing a bit of the down and dirty work, and he doesn't mind getting niggly with his opponents. Unfortunately, it went the other way for him in this game. Well, it was always going to, the way that Birkenhead like to play, the way that Auckland City like to play. But first of all, Auckland United game before that, Pia Vlok probably wouldn't have played. She didn't play very much for them during the winter season. I'm not sure entirely why. I think she is someone who's played a lot of boys football, so I think maybe they were keeping her playing some of that stuff rather than playing in the NRFL Premiership, which isn't necessarily like, there's a bit of more of a gap from week to week between the best teams and the worst teams in that division. Perhaps they just felt it was better for her development there, but also she missed a lot of time because not only was she with the under-17 World Cup squad, but she was young enough that she was also with the under-16 squad that was qualifying for next year's under-17 World Cup. So she wasn't available for much of the National League because of that, but she did play last week and she got a couple of assists just as in a little bit of a rotated team. But Chloe Knott was unavailable for the grand final. So there's one of your very best players not able to go. Well, let's chuck the 16-year-old in, the 16-year-old borderline phenom. I've talked her up for over a year because she was doing stuff like this as a 15-year-old in last year's championship winning team. Did play off the bench in the final that day as well. And yeah, no worries. My youngest player on the pitch, but she's just skipping around tackles. She scored a goal very early. It was a goalkeeping mistake from Waterside Korori's Annie Foot, unfortunately. And she probably will feel that all 3 goals she conceded, she could have done better with. She did also make a couple spectacular saves outside of that. So it's not like it was a shocker. It was just that, yeah, you just can't be giving Auckland United a head start in the grand final and being 2-0 down early doors. So yeah, that's effectively set up the victory for United, who completed quadruple, matching what the Auckland City men's team did in 2022, but they also completed an undefeated season, which Auckland City 2022 did not do. They lost a game or two in the National League. That's 41 games this year in 2024. 41 games in which they've won 38 of them. They've drawn 3, lost none, of course. They've won 4 trophies. They've won the local premiership. They've won the Oceania Champions League. They won the Kate Shepherd Cup. They won the National League. They have scored 118 goals and conceded 18. So 18 goals conceded in 41 games is alone quite incredible. Because they won by 2 goals here, that meant they also finished the year with a plus 100 goal difference, which is a sneaky decent milestone and amongst all the other amazing milestones. But Pia Vlok wasn't the only goal scorer in this game. They also got a double from Charlotte Roach, who won the Golden Boot because she scored a couple goals last week and a couple goals the week before. This is actually 3 games in a row she scored twice. So she might be a little bit annoyed she got subbed off with half an hour to go when she was on a hat-trick. I think she actually had a double earlier in the season as well. She's 4 times she scored twice, but she hasn't got a hat-trick in any of those games. But she was the Golden Boot, and then she scored 2 more goals on top of being the Golden Boot winner in the final. Great stuff from her. She's only like 20 as well, so she's only a few years older than Pia Vlok. She's moved up from Canterbury to Auckland United this year, and yeah, really just rounding off her game, adding a lot of hold-up stuff, adding some clever layoffs, and just the movement, the run she makes. The first goal she scored was from charging down a clearance from the goalkeeper after an under-hit back pass. It's like a great example of a goal you get from just being tenacious, from just keep on running, keep on just, put the foot on the gas and go for it. And yeah, Charlotte Roach, another star of the championship for Auckland United, but of course they're a stacked team. They got good imports. Hannah Mitchell had a strong game and goal. Yuma Harashima did an excellent job shutting down Korori's most dangerous player, Emma Starr. So it was it was set up by the early goals, but it was ultimately and Korori did give them they had a go. They gave them as much as they could, but it was definitely like the best team won kind of situation with Auckland City. This is a harder game to write about because I couldn't take notes to it because I was commentating on it with my boy Glenn Lama. So good fun there, but it was a wild game. Like it was a it was very physical, very full of running from both teams. It was a lot of heavy challenges kind of thing, and just yeah, hectic football. Birkenhead did score first, but Auckland City, ultimately the difference in the game was Auckland City's bench. And as much as I was sitting there waiting to be able to say some great stuff about Stipe Jukic and the sort of superstar prospect he is, didn't really get that opportunity because it didn't really happen for him. But what happened instead was that kind of that championship story that you get where it's like, on comes Dylan Manicum off the bench, influential. On comes Ryan DeVries off the bench, influential. On comes Angus Kilcoley off the bench, influential, scores the winner in extra time. Kentaro Ozaki also had a very good game off the bench, and Regi Murati gave him good impact up on the right wing as well. So that's your caliber of substitutes that you're bringing on. Like a few of those guys have been involved in countless trophies won for Auckland City through the years. It's like there's not only is there no let up, they're arguably able to turn it up even further. And I think it was quite a sneaky, clever move from Albireira as well, too, because Dylan Manicum has started every single game through the National League and then finds himself on the bench for the grand final, which seems like a bit of a seems like a bit of a stinger, but then because of that, he comes on after 60, 70 minutes or something like that, ends up going extra time, so he's still getting the big outlet out there, but he is on the pitch at the most crucial time when the trophy is decided, and he sets up the goal that Kilcoley scores. Kilcoley, same deal. Like he's been coming off same deal in that he's an impact sub, but he's been coming off the bench mostly throughout this National League, and he's still managed to score, I think, including the final, 5 goals and 3 assists, and he started 1 game. He's played every game, but he started 1. 9 of those are as a sub, so big impact, like big influence as a substitute, and just the depth that Auckland City have, and the depth, but also its experience depth. There's guys who've played in grand finals before and can come on and do what they need to do when it matters most. So yeah, that was good fun, but ultimately you sort of got the expected outcome in the women's final. The men's one, I think, was a little more up for grabs because Auckland City had some wobbles and Birkenhead were in good form, and it did go to extra time, so it was definitely could have gone either way. But in the end, you did see the sort of inevitability of Auckland City just grinding them down over the course of the full game, and ultimately finding that big moment when they needed that big moment. Angus Kilcoley, championship in the bag, another trophy for Auckland City. These two teams will meet again, though, early next year because it's not straight Champions League qualifying. They do get a playoff between the first and second team, so there is a 2-legged playoff. In fact, we've had that the last couple of years as Wellington Olympic and Auckland City. We'll get it next year with Birkenhead and Auckland City, so Birkenhead do at least get some kind of reward out of their very good season.